G'day, it's fugitive Australian journalist Shane Dowling from the website and YouTube channel Kangaroo Court of Australia. Now, the Lawyers for Israel contempt proceedings against Nine Entertainment was back in court today, and I'll give you a brief overview of it. Then we'll discuss potentially the Lawyers for Israel being in breach of Australia's foreign influence laws, which has a penalty of 5 years. I think it's an open and shut case myself because they call themselves Lawyers for Israel, so they make it blatantly obvious they're representing the Israeli government or trying to represent them, and they haven't registered, from what I can tell, on Australia's Foreign Influence Register, which is a penalty of 5 years jail. But firstly, let's have a look at today's hearing. Now, the contempt matter is part of the Antoinette Lattouf v ABC unlawful termination case, where Lawyers for Israel, 9 of them, I was saying 8 before, but 9 of them applied for suppression orders because they showed up in emails or text messages or whatever, WhatsApp group messages, complaining to the ABC, trying to have Antoinette Lattouf sacked, which ultimately was successful. And they didn't want their names being published during the course of that court case, so they applied for suppression orders because they said they would be in danger, they would get death threats, etc. And because no one challenged it, the judge basically green-lighted it without any debate and approved the suppression orders. And now they're saying that Nine Entertainment's Age, Fairfax Media Publications, 2 journalists, 2 editors and 2 lawyers at Nine breached those suppression orders. Now, they had a hearing on the 25th of June 2025, which was the start of the hearing. They finished it off today, another couple of hours today. And I published a video on the 8th of July 2025 titled Lawyers for Israel versus Nine Back in Court. And I published an article on the 11th of July titled The 8 Lawyers for Israel, after escaping the lion's den, have gone back for their hats. So if you want the background information, you can go to the YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to that video and also that article below this video on YouTube, so you can click on them and read the background or more of the background. In the 3 hours or so the judge heard today finalises the hearing, and he's reserved his decision, so that could be a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, who knows. But I don't think it'll take him that long. One of the issues today is that they filed further evidence, the 9 Lawyers for Israel supporters, and in that evidence they filed screenshots of Twitter users, or ex-users now, as it's known, showing them breaching the court orders. So the question has to be, if they were successful against Nine and their journalists and editors and lawyers, etc., will they come after social media users? Now, just to clarify, it wasn't actually a contempt proceeding today. I've been referring to it as contempt. They want the judge to refer it to the Register of the Federal Court of Australia, and that the Register will institute contempt proceedings against the companies I just named, and the journalists and the lawyers and editors for the Nine Entertainment companies' employees. And as I said in the previous video and previous article, it's because they want to dodge costs, dodge liability. They don't have to sign off on affidavits themselves if they prosecuted the contempt proceedings themselves. And also, if they prosecute the contempt proceedings, and I regard it as frivolous and vexatious, and they lose, well, they have cost orders against them. And that could be a lot of money. Whereas their application to asking the court, well, if they lose that, they might be up for 10 or 20 grand instead of maybe 100, 200 grand if they prosecute the contempt proceedings themselves and fail. Now, it's worth noting the lawyer and the barrister representing the 9 Lawyers for Israel. The lawyer is Rebecca Giles, and I've written about her a couple of times, and also the barrister is Sue Chrysanthou. I've written about her a couple of times, and I'm sure they both know me. Well, I know Sue Chrysanthou certainly does. And I'll read you out a couple of headings of a couple of articles I've written about them. On the 20th of March 2021, I wrote an article titled Christian Porter's lawyer, Rebecca Giles, said to her ex, "You and the woman will be very happy as long as you keep your Viagra script current, keep flashing your cash, keep the cocaine coming." Then I published an article on the 8th of April 2021 titled Christian Porter's lawyer, Rebecca Giles, has corruptly used the law and tech company Google to hide her past. Will she do the same for Porter? It obviously relates to the previous article I'd written when they had that blocked by Google. Now, Sue Chrysanthou is a barrister, and on the 18th of July 2022, I published an article titled Christian Porter, John Barilaro and Alan Jones barrister, Sue Chrysanthou SC, is found to be corrupt by the full court of the Federal Court. Now, that's where the court had to issue an order blocking Sue Chrysanthou from representing Christian Porter because she had inside knowledge of the case. She had represented someone else associated with the case. But you can read that article on my website anyhow, And on the 28th of January 2024, I published an article, Barrister Sue Chrysanthi uses the Bruce Lerman defamation trial to go on a personal jihad against journalist Shane Dowling. Now, that's me. During the course of that proceedings, she filed submissions attacking me. There was no relevance to the overall case. It was just clearly in an attempt to drop the boot into me. Now, all those articles you can read on my website. You can go to Kangaroo Court of Australia. You can do a search in the search box on the top right-hand corner. They give you a bit of a background for the 9 Lawyers for Israel group, WhatsApp group. Now, it's worth noting there's 9 of those lawyers who have instituted the proceedings, but there's about 170 in that WhatsApp group all up. So how are we meant to know which of the 9 in that 170 group? Now, I'll just mention one thing that came out today, and I'll wait for the judge to hand down his judgment, see if he deals with it. But they got the court order on the 3rd of February 2025, suppressing their names. And it was only meant to be related to the names that came up during the court case. And so they restricted access to the files. But these people were apparently named in the media prior to that over the previous 12 months. After they got the suppression orders, their lawyer, Rebecca Giles, tried to extend it and wrote to journalists at the Sydney Morning Herald, or The Age, I mean, and said, oh, look, actually, you've got to take these articles down because they're in breach of the court orders. But they weren't. It's bullshit. What they did, they got the court orders that took them to a certain level, saying it basically it only if they're mentioned in the court case and they're in the documents. In affidavits, actually, the order they wanted, if they're mentioned in affidavits, which means if the affidavits are restricted, well, we'll never know who they were, and so we're not breaching the court orders. But they're claiming 9 breach of court orders. It's a stupid claim, and they shouldn't be allowed to get away with it, and we'll see if the judge allows that. Because if they're allowed to extend it beyond what it should have been, well, then they can potentially come after social media users, etc. And that'll open a whole new can of worms. Now, when I published that article the other day in the video, I shared them on social media, as I always do. Now, someone commented on X that they believe that Lawyers for Israel were in breach of Australia's foreign influence laws. So I decided to have a look, and it has a penalty imprisonment of 5 years. And the person who published it was on Twitter, Mike Hutchison. He said, if any, all of these lawyers for Israel are genuinely for Israel, they will, of course, have registered under Australia's Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme. As far as I can ascertain, none of them has. Will they be prosecuted? Penalty up to 5 years. Bring it on. Well, if you go to the actual act, it doesn't say up to 5 years, which most criminal offences do. They say up to X amount of years. The actual act says for 5 years. And I'll put up some of the screenshots I've got from the government's website, the Attorney General's Department, Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme. The Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme commenced on the 10th of December 2018. The purpose of the scheme is to provide the public with visibility of the nature, level and extent of foreign influence on Australia's government and politics. Well, those Lawyers for Israel writing to the ABC, which is government-owned, trying to have someone sacked, were entitled to know who those lawyers are. Then it goes on to say the overview of the scheme. Broadly speaking, any person must register if they meet all of the following criteria. They undertake registrable activities or enter into a registrable arrangement. The activity is or will be undertaken in Australia on behalf of a foreign principal. Well, they've named themselves Lawyers for Israel, so that's what they're saying they're doing. The activity is undertaken for the purpose of political or governmental influence. Well, they're trying to influence ABC, which is a part of the government. No exemptions apply. Well, they're pretty harsh. They're not mucking around. In some cases, this may depend on whether the person has held a senior public position in Australia. Well, in this case, it doesn't really matter. A foreign principal includes a foreign government. Well, that's what they say they're doing. They're Lawyers for Israel, a foreign government. The registrable activities include parliamentary lobbying, general political lobbying. Well, they were lobbying the ABC in general. Communications activities. Well, they're emailing the chairperson, the CEO of the ABC. Now, if they don't register, it says failing to comply with obligations under the scheme, failing to register in circumstances where a person is required to do so, providing false or misleading information, and destroying records to avoid registration obligations. Well, they're getting their name suppressed. Maybe they want their name suppressed to avoid the obligation to register, 1, and 2, to avoid being found out for breaching the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme Act. Section 57, failure to apply or renew registration, penalty, imprisonment for, it's not up to 5 years, it's 5 years flat. Anyhow, I'll keep on following up on this matter. And please do your bit and help shine a light on corruption and share this video on social media. And please hit the like and subscribe button and notification button. That way you get notified every time I publish a new video. And Kangaroo Court of Australia is independent media. I publish a website and a YouTube channel. And I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself. So please support my Patreon account or PayPal account. Links for them are below this video on YouTube and also my website. Or you can go to my website and click on the donations page for other donation options. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.